Welcome to Being at Home with George. I'm very excited to be here with you. And as we go into this session, I like to create the possibility of being able to embrace whatever comes up, saying yes to it, and at the same time, generating hope. So we've been in this COVID. I haven't been traveling as much. I made one trip during this time. It was about a year ago, exactly a year ago to the day that I had this video shoot in Tahiti. So I traveled from where I live to Tahiti, and I was doing this video series called Finding Paradise Within. And I had to get tested, and it was concerned whether or not it was safe for me to travel. I decided that they had a protocol set up so that I got tested, and then I flew, then I got tested when I got to wherever I got. But the main thing was I was in this beautiful place, this paradise, and I was thinking about and reflecting on the fact that what does that mean, finding paradise within? And in that place, externally, obviously it was paradise. It was an amazing place, amazing people. And I started reflecting on it, and I realized that on some level, we meet what we mirror. And so even though I was in paradise, I was experiencing paradise within myself. And so do I have to be in paradise to experience my paradise within? And the answer to that is no, that wherever I go, there I am. And we can seek inside and realize we experience it because we have it inside of us. And so oftentimes I feel that I have to remind myself that the paradise is there. I don't have to go to Tahiti. And at the same time, it's a matter of what I hold in mind, what I choose to direct my attention to. And I may have mentioned this on one of our previous calls because last week I talked about acting as if and living in faith. And the reality is that we become what we think about. We become what we hold in mind and manifest. And I talked about this book, The Strangest Secret, by Earl Nightingale, and he talks about we become what we think about. And of course, I think it was Emerson that said we become what we think about all day long. And so we actually meet what we mirror. And in spite of where we are, we have access inside to seek the paradise within. And I have been really interested in this idea of being able to see things like something happens. So it's COVID, and I feel more excited and more enthusiastic about life than I ever have. And it's not like I'm in denial. It's that I'm making a choice to embrace everything and to generate the hope. But at the same time, that there's this crisis, and it harkens me back to 28 years ago when I started working with the Chicago Bulls and I went to training camp. And when I went there to help them deal with the stress of success, they were in full-blown crisis because Michael Jordan's father got killed and he had resigned. And the task in front of us, here I am going in there. I used to work at a stress reduction clinic at UMass Medical Center in Worcester. And I was going there to help them deal with the stress of success. And we were in full-blown crisis when I went there. And it's reminding me that crisis has two meanings, and this is what I shared with the team, that one meaning is danger, the other meaning is opportunity. The opportunity to step up and to really focus on what we can do, what we want, and where we want to go, instead of focusing on what's not happening and what we're missing, even if it's a huge piece. And that worked out really well for them, and that's been my experience throughout my development. And so I think that if I look at the situation we're in COVID, and this is how I've been dealing with it, this is why I do these at home with George's during COVID, is because we have the same opportunity. There's danger, but there's opportunity here. And we need to focus on what we can do given where we are. And so for some of us, we're not able to be in person. So we have to make do. We do Zoom, but we have time to really reflect and think about how we're relating to our situation so that we're able to find the silver lining. We're able to focus on what we can control, where the silver lining is. And so that's what I want to offer, is that we need to do that. We need to figure out how are we going to focus on what we want to do, and how can we find a paradise within each of us so that we can reflect that in the environment into the people that we come in contact with. And so for me, it's really, for all of us really, is to focus on what we want, focus on how can we do things. I gave a presentation to Suffolk County in New York. I did a little presentation with them, and I was talking to the coaches and the athletic directors and some of the administrators on some of the issues that they're still challenged with, a shortened season and the potential of season being canceled and whatnot. And they told me about the idea that they have a shortage of bus drivers. And as a result of having a shortage of bus drivers, the buses are coming to pick up the student athletes an hour later than they normally do. And so the idea was, instead of complaining and being frustrated, why not use that hour to do team building or to do the things that we normally don't have the opportunity to do, namely to let people share about how they're feeling and how they're challenged. And one of the things that I found from talking to this organization was that the kids wanted to get to a place where they could be okay with not being okay. And so that was the challenge, is how can we embrace what's happening, generate the hope, and say, okay, what can we do? What opportunities do we have where we can actually get access to our own paradise within? But at the same time, by doing that, by hallowing, by being of service and supporting each other, that we are creating an environment where that becomes contagious. And so instead of focusing on what we don't have or worried about the next shoe to drop, that we do the things we know to do. And if we're living in that space of being joyful in spite of what's happening and feeling like we're expanding our capacity by being like water, just flowing with what's happening and kind of going for there. But the qualities that are really important are the qualities that bring us together. And once again, I'm reminded of this idea of when there's a crisis. I want to think about the Boston Marathon bombing. When the bombs went off, there were some people running away from the bomb, but there were other people running to it. And every once in a while, we get beyond this illusion of separateness, and we come together and we forget about all of those mundane things, and we realize I and the other are one. And so the way to get through this crisis, if you will, is to focus on what we can do and focus on the opportunities that are there. And by leveling up to those opportunities, COVID becomes, rather than being a roadblock, it becomes a stepping stone, and it allows us to move towards wellness, to move towards community. And it's interesting because three of the things that predict how we're going to do it in a new endeavor, in a job or whatever, from the research that Shawn Achor has done with the Happiness Advantage, one of the things is high levels of hope or optimism, or what they call positive genius, so keeping the mind positive, focusing on what we can do. Second thing is social support. So this is where us being able to support each other, to be of service to each other, is really important. And the third thing is seeing a stressful event as a challenge and not as a curse. So we can do that, and we need to do that. And by doing that, we can actually start to access the paradise we have within. And of course, we meet what we mirror. So hopefully that will be reflected in all our interactions. And so that we actually can bring paradise here where we stand and not have to go all the way to Tahiti to experience the paradise within. And so that's one of the opportunities we have in front of us, is can we focus on what we want? Can we focus on how to serve each other, how to support each other, how to be a little bit more kind, a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more inclusive? And so I'll end with that. But I want to use the quote that's really important. And that is that 90% of our long-term happiness is predicated on how the brain and the nervous system interprets our experience. And so something happens, we can interpret it in ways where we see the opportunity and we see the possibility of getting beyond the illusion of separateness, where we really feel that I and the other are one, and that is paradise within.